Lagos, the nation's commercial capital. This is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Ijoma Onyato.
Hello and welcome. Passengers without face masks will not be allowed on domestic flights as Presidential Task Force says Nigeria will likely reach its peak in September. Edo State Governor Rotimi Akeredolu tests negative for COVID-19. Federal government to shut Third Mainland Bridge for 6 months to repair some sections of the bridge. And China warns UK over interference in Hong Kong matters after Beijing imposed sweeping new national security law. Plus, we'll have business, sports, news from Abuja, the FCT, and later on news from our studios in London.
On business news tonight, Lamido Yuguda formally resumes as the new Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, as shows of growth for the country's capital market post-COVID-19.
Sports news tonight, the French Football Federation confirms that the 2019 FIFA Women's World Cup contributed $320 million to the country's economy.
And from Abuja, Economic and Financial Crimes Commission Acting Chairman Ibrahim Magu faces Presidential Probe Panel.
Nigerians cannot afford to let their guard down right now in the fight against COVID-19, and that's according to members of the Presidential Task Force. The PTF at its briefing in Abuja today warned of the dangers of making the same mistakes that characterized the easing of the lockdown during the 1918 Spanish flu. And as the country gets set to open its airports for local flights on Wednesday, July the 8th, the PTF says passengers who refuse to comply with the health and safety protocols, including the use of face masks, will not be allowed to fly.
It's barely 48 hours to the reopening of Nigerian airports for local flights, and discussions about health safety protocols for operators and passengers is taking center stage at this briefing in Abuja by the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19.
It will be very, very hard to ensure that you put your mask while you're seated. If you don't, we consider you as an unruly passenger. An unruly passenger is not allowed to board our aircraft. Once you are an unruly passenger, if you start to shout, just shout, yeah, and you're disturbing peace of aircraft, no, the captain will not go, you'll be dropped. President Muhammadu Buhari has approved, and this is a very serious matter for us, the hitherto, big men, especially military men, ministers, members of the National Assembly, and the judiciary, and governors, PAs and SAs are representatives of people that are not traveling, and they insist they must take them inside and onto the aircraft by protocol. This will not be allowed, will not be permitted, they will be stopped.
The Minister of Health gives an update on the current situation in the Federal Medical Center, Lokoja, just as he notes the surge in the number of confirmed cases of COVID-19 in the month of June.
With regard to Kogi State, arrangements are underway to beef up security at Federal Medical Center, Lokoja, for the protection of staff and patients. The federal government will do all it can to attend to the needs of the citizens and restore full service, while we seek ways to engage the state authorities for attending to the needs of the citizens. Taking the statistics of the month of June alone, with 303 deaths on record, it means that just under half of the total fatalities so far recorded occurred in that single month of June.
The Minister of State for Education also announces a date for the commencement of the West African Examinations Council, WAEC.
I come and announce the dates for WAEC exams. From the 4th of August to the 5th of September. Parents, please take note.
Nigeria currently has over 28,000 confirmed cases of COVID-19. Many wonder what the situation will look like in the weeks ahead as the government gradually eases the lockdown to restart the economy, even in the face of very weak enforcement of the health safety protocols.
Meanwhile, the PTF believes that Nigeria will probably reach its peak of COVID-19 cases by September this year. The chairman of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, Mr. Boss Mustafa, says developments in the next few weeks will determine whether there will be another lockdown or not.
I believe as the days and weeks ahead would present, I would not be speculative as to what would happen in the future, but we will do everything within our mandate to ensure the safety and the protection of the well-being of the people of Nigeria. If that would require a recommendation of a lockdown, this task force would not shy away from its responsibilities. We will take that decision. We will make our recommendations to Mr. President, who will finally decide. I've said it here that lockdowns might not be popular now. But what would happen in the preceding weeks would determine. Madagascar has imposed a lockdown in spite of its herbal cure.
The Edo State Governor Rotimi Akeredolu says he's tested negative for COVID-19, and that's coming a few days after the governor announced he tested positive. He immediately embarked on self-isolation and says he is now tested negative after doctors conducted another round of tests on him.
As you all know, I have also been a victim of COVID-19. Though asymptomatic, I tested positive to the virus and I immediately went into isolation with supervised home management. Those days in isolation were a defining period for me. They convinced me further of the right track we have chosen to mobilize our people against the deadly pandemic. After some days in isolation, our team of doctors decided to take my sample and I was tested again in accordance with the treatment protocols of COVID-19. The result came earlier today. I tested negative.
Now, while the fight to contain the virus continues, the Kogi State Governor Yahaya Bello is accusing politicians of using the COVID-19 pandemic as a game. Governor Bello insists that the pandemic is a scam orchestrated by a few individuals to generate profit to the detriment of the poor masses. And in Cross River State, the Nigerian Medical Association is locked in a controversy on whether or not the state has recorded a case of coronavirus.
A country torn by a silent killer. The fears are evident. Masks are now worn by almost everyone as the Nigeria Center for Disease Control reports COVID-19 cases in 35 of the 36 states. 2 of the states vehemently reject any report of a possible COVID-19 case. They simply will not have it.
I don't want to believe the language of mutation. Coronavirus behaving like chameleon, change to white today, tomorrow change to black.
He is the most defiant in the rejection. The NCDC has officially reported 4 persons living with the virus in the porous confluent state, sharing borders with 9 other states. They have all reported the virus. In line with the steps to stop its spread, guests from the Ahmadu Bello Memorial Foundation on a visit to the governor came along with face masks for him and his people.
For him, please.
We are confident that the measures already taken by the state government will continue to keep Kogi safe from the pandemic.
Senator Shekaro and his entourage also advocate against rape, another scourge in the country. Crossing over to Cross River State, the situation appears to be equally dire. The state NMA says that the virus has affected its members and has embarked on a strike.
The 2 doctors who I have direct contact with, I said yesterday night I called them. Have you been contacted by anybody for contact tracing or anything? And they said no, they are all in their houses on self-isolation.
The Commissioner for Health in the state disagrees, saying the virus is non-existent in the state.
The claim is that samples was sent to Ebonyi State and that they got results back from Ebonyi State. As a state, we do not have powers over Ebonyi State to announce anything from Ebonyi State or stuff like that.
In the meantime, the Federal Ministry of Health has sent a 17-man powerful delegation to Cross Rivers to help solve the challenge.
Family health are represented in the delegation to ensure the appropriate technical handshake between federal and state Cross River State service delivery pillars.
Perhaps this is the needed intervention for the NMA and the state government before COVID-19 gets out of control. Yemba Umaru, Channels Television News.
And staying with COVID-19 stories, the federal government has granted 60% debt forgiveness to all debtor broadcasting stations in the country to cushion the effect of the virus. The Minister of Information, Lai Mohammed, says the measures became necessary owing to the fact that broadcast industry is hugely affected by falling revenues, failing adverts and sponsored programs.
Due to the falling revenues occasioned by the dwindling adverts and sponsored programs in the wake of the pandemic. Against this background, the management of the MBC has therefore recommended, and the federal government has accepted, the following measures to revamp the broadcast industry and to help reposition it for the challenges of business post-COVID-19. A, 60% debt forgiveness for all debtor broadcast stations in the country. B, the criterion for enjoying the debt forgiveness is for debtor stations to pay the outstanding 40% of the existing debt within the next 3 months. C, any station that is unable to pay the balance of 40% indebtedness within the 3 months window shall forfeit the opportunity to enjoy the stated debt forgiveness. D, the existing license fee is further discounted by 30% open to all open terrestrial radio and television stations effective July 10th, 2020.
Meanwhile, the Independent Broadcasters Association of Nigeria has acknowledged the 60% debt forgiveness granted to broadcasting organizations in the country, describing it as timely and an indication that the authorities are sensitive to the issues affecting them. The association expresses gratitude to the federal government and the Minister of Information, Lai Mohammed, for the gesture, but wants a review of the 3-month caveat for the payment of the 40% debt. The association is asking the federal government to extend the deadline to 12 months as the distress affecting members predates the pandemic. The statement by the ANBAN Secretary, Mr. Guy Murray Bruce, adds that the group will continue to cooperate with all institutions of government in the fight against coronavirus. In part 2, after the break, federal government to shut Third Mainland Bridge for 6 months to repair some sections of the bridge. That's in a moment. Do stay with us. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, coming to you live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Passengers without face masks will not be allowed on domestic flights, as Presidential Task Force says Nigeria will likely reach its peak in September. Edo State Governor Rotimi Akeredolu tests negative for COVID-19. Federal government to shut Third Mainland Bridge for 6 months to repair some sections of the bridge. And China warns UK over interference in Hong Kong matters after Beijing imposed sweeping new national security law. Our website, channelstv.com, has more information on our top stories and others. Do subscribe and watch Channels Television's live stream on YouTube and other social media platforms using your mobile device browser, or download the Channels TV app for Android and iOS devices from their respective stores. You can also watch us via your smart TV platforms on Apple TV, Android, Fire TV, and Roku as well. Motorists in Lagos who ply the Third Mainland Bridge may have to begin making arrangements for alternative routes, as the Federal Ministry of Works says it will be closing the bridge for a period of 6 months, starting from July the 24th. This was confirmed by the Federal Comptroller of Works in Lagos, Olukayode Kpobola, who says that consultations are on for another phase of repair work to begin on the bridge. The bridge has gone through a series of repair work and was last shut in August 2018 for a 3-day investigative maintenance check. There have also been reports of some worn-out expansion joints on the structure, raising concerns over the state of the bridge. According to Mr. Kpobola, the work will commence on the outward mainland section of the bridge, and the ministry is working with relevant agencies to prevent traffic during the period. To legal matters, where a federal high court sitting in Lagos has adjourned the trial of the former governor of Edo State, Ayodele Fayose, to October the 20th. The former governor was present in court, but the case failed to go on. The court adjourned at the instance of counsel to the EFCC, Rotimi Jacob, who told Justice Chukwuje Kuaneke that the prosecution witness who was supposed to testify today was not available. The lawyer said that the witness had informed him that one of his family members was being quarantined in an isolation center, and he subsequently asked the court for an adjournment. At the last sitting of the court on March the 5th, the EFCC had called its 5th witness in the trial of the former governor for an alleged 2.2 billion naira fraud. Let's cross over to Abuja now, and here's Linda Akigbe. Linda?
Hello, Ijoma. Welcome to Abuja. The Department of State Services, DSS, says it did not arrest the acting chairman of the EFCC, Mr. Ibrahim Magu. The DSS says the clarification becomes necessary following a series of inquiries about the EFCC boss. Meanwhile, the EFCC, in a statement by its spokesperson, Dele Oyewale, confirmed that the EFCC boss honored an invitation by a presidential panel reviewing the activities of the EFCC at the banquet hall wing of the presidential villa, Abuja. According to the statement, he was served the invitation to the panel while on his way to the force headquarters, Abuja, for a meeting. The statement goes on to say the EFCC boss was neither arrested nor forced to honor the invitation, and that a member of a legal team from the EFCC is also with him on the panel. To the National Assembly, the Speaker of the House of Representatives has frowned at the refusal of some banks to honor the invitation of the House Joint Committee on Finance, Banking and Currency. According to the Speaker, the House would not fail to invoke the weight of the law against the banks if needed. The committee is investigating the more than $30 billion alleged annual revenue leakage in the country. Our correspondent Terry Kumi reports.
The Joint Committee of the House of Representatives on Finance, Banking and Currency begins its investigative hearing on the alleged $30 billion annual revenue leakages arising from tax evasion, misuse and diversion of foreign exchange allocations by companies and other entities. For the first hearing, some of the banks have failed to attend, and this has infuriated the Speaker of the House.
But I want to make it clear that the House is not going to sit idly. We do not want to be forced to go to the full extent of the law, in this case, the Constitution, to exercise the full powers of the House of Representatives.
But the woes of the committee get even worse when one of the banks presents a court order.
So it's not the bank that went to court, it's the customer on behalf of the customer that went. So it's not us, we are not the one that went to court.
You have a registered association as registered customers of Stanbic IBTC. You don't have? I put it to you that Chief Wale Taiwo SAN is the lawyer of has always been the lawyer of IBTC. So it is IBTC that induced him to go on behalf of other customers. I put it to you.
Members of the committee insist on the independence of the legislature as a third arm of government.
You as an individual might wish to go to court, but you cannot prevent us from working, carrying out our duty as in the rule of separation of powers. We should be allowed to exist as much as you have your right.
Do you have anything to hide in the present engagement with the Parliament as far as this investigation is concerned?
No, yes or no? No, sir. We want to plead that if the banks have nothing to hide, they should respond to our letters and submit all the required documents. Failure which will be forced to use the constitutional powers within its available to it. And that is to say, to compel appearance by issuing warrant of arrest.
The decision to launch a probe follows a motion of urgent public importance on the 5th of March 2020 by Representative James Faleke to rescue the country from revenue leakages, which according to him could be used to fund the country's budgets. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
Ahead of tomorrow's meeting between the National Assembly and the Minister of Labour over the Public Works Programme, the Senate President Ahmed Lawan insists that the programme remains suspended until the executive explains how it will implement it. Senator Lawan explains that the National Assembly conceptualized and appropriated 52 billion naira for the Public Works Programme, and part of its oversight is to understand how the executive intends on implementing the programme. The National Assembly Joint Committee on Labour was engaged in a war of words with the Minister of State Labour, Mr. Festus Keyamo, on Tuesday, June 30th, over the modalities for choosing members of the selection committees in each state for the programme.
When the National Assembly was to pass that request, the National Assembly was conscious through scrutiny that NDE, the National Directorate of Employment, will be the agency to implement the program. And we approve that because we know NDE has the capacity to implement the program. So that program is an NDE program approved by the National Assembly, 52 billion naira worth of program. Secondly, it is within the purview of our committees to demand an explanation on the process and procedure through which this program will be implemented. So our joint committee was right. The committee was right to ask the questions. We are meant to interrogate the processes through which such programs would be implemented. Thirdly, the committee resolved that the program should be suspended until such explanations are provided on how this program will be implemented. We stand by that.
Away from the National Assembly, the chairman of the newly inaugurated All Progressive Congress Campaign Council for the Edo State governorship election, Mr. Abdullahi Ganduje, says the party is not bothered by the recent defection of the state governor to the opposition People's Democratic Party. Governor Ganduje says the reasons for Mr. Obaseki's defection are far from being noble, and the people will ultimately decide who to pitch their tent with. He was speaking in Abuja shortly after the campaign council was inaugurated at the party's national secretariat in Abuja.
The PDP decided to accommodate our former governor in Edo State, not because they have anything common, not because they share some ideological feelings, but simply because he is managing the treasury of Edo State, and they want him to use that treasury in order to win the election. But I assure you, the people of Edo State are watching. They know that somebody who was assisted in 2016 to win an election, somebody who was given every cooperation to succeed in governance of Edo State without doing much to the people, at the end of it, he has taken the treasury and now handed it over to PDP in order to win election. The people of Edo State will not accept this treachery.
Meanwhile, the People's Democratic Party has been reacting to the comments by Governor Ganduje. The party said in a statement that it is ironic that somebody who is seen on the viral video stuffing his robe with gratification in foreign currency would accuse the PDP of corrupt intentions in the Edo governorship election. The PDP points out that Governor Ganduje has further confirmed the real intention of the APC, which is to use who it describes as their morally embattled candidate for their desperate efforts to regain access to Edo State Treasury after Governor Godwin Obaseki liberated the state from the stranglehold of the APC treasury looting godfathers. The party describes Governor Wike as a highly respected, upright, honest, transparent leader who is firmly in touch with the people of Edo State and enjoys their confidence and trust. When the News at 10 returns, Lamido Yuguda formally resumes as new Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, assures of growth for the capital markets. That's in business news. Join us again.
Welcome back to the News at 10. Following the torrential rain that ravaged some roads and bridges in Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital, the State Governor Dapo Abiodun has ordered the immediate commencement of repair work on the affected structures to bring a new lease of life to the residents. He gave the order while on a physical inspection of structures damaged by the flood, just as he promised financial palliatives to those who have been affected.
The road itself has been damaged, is almost failing, almost cut into two. So the first thing is to try and restore vehicular traffic. That's a palliative. But the long term, what we're doing that, we are clearing the channel, the debris from the channel, we're desilting it, so at least the water can flow. We're widening it, That way, if rain falls tomorrow, it can accommodate more volume of water. But in the long run, we have to put a new bridge, we have to construct a proper drainages on this road, because the water just comes and it overflows its banks and all that. So, and then more importantly, there's some houses that are actually built on the water channel. So this is a comprehensive plan. We have to look at those houses, we have to demolish them, put drainages in place, have a new bridge built here that would accommodate. If you look at this one, you find out that underneath it, half of it is already blocked because there are rocks there, and the other half was covered by debris and all that. So they've removed the debris now, but obviously it cannot accommodate the volume of water that's, and we have predictions that rain this year between June, July and August will be very heavy.
The people of Baramatu Kingdom in Warri's southwest local government area of Delta State have made a number of demands which they say the federal government must immediately address or risk a complete shutdown of oil and gas installations in their domain in the next few days. The spokesperson of the kingdom, Chief God's Power Benekama, who read out the position of his people during a town hall meeting, said the people of Baramatu Kingdom are not happy with the federal government over alleged deliberate abandonment of development projects cited in their areas, as well as marginalization in terms of appointments and employment opportunities, despite contributing so much to the nation's economy.
What sort of political gathering could this be? You may be wondering, judging from the outfits and the sitting arrangements. Let's cut the chase. These chiefs, elders, women, and youth of Baramatu Kingdom are gathered in their traditional headquarters, Oproza, in Warri Southwest local government area of Delta State. It's a sit-down protest which is meant to convey to the federal government their grievances, which includes the abandonment of the multi-billion-dollar export processing zone, Gas Revolution Industrial Park Ogidigbe, and Deep Sea Port Project, Baramatu Project, Omidiano Escravos Road Project, which has been abandoned also, and the recent bidding process for 57 marginal fields, which they claim has excluded any indigenous of the oil-rich community.
Government should in fact call NIMESA to order and ensure that the floating dockyard that is meant for Kerenkoko, that is opposite where the takeoff site of the Maritime University is brought to us. Enough!
It's not just about voicing out. They've got something more.
We have stated that if these demands are not considered and modalities put in place for their achievement, we shut down all oil and gas operations in our homeland in 10 days after the publication of that letter.
Where you see me here next tomorrow, on Thursday, you will not see me in this manner again. They will see the good side, I will not say the bad side, the good side of Baramatu women and the children.
In 2017, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, in company of some ministers, toured the Niger Delta region to broker further peace. These folks argue that while they've kept their side of the bargain, the federal government hasn't. Hopefully, the federal government would act swiftly to avoid further pressure on the country's revenue earnings, which is largely based on oil. Olu Phillips, Channels Television News.
Police authorities have dismissed officers belonging to the Eagle Crack Squad for allegedly torturing late Chima Ekunador to death in December 2019 in Rivers State. The officers were de-kitted today and dismissed ahead of their trial, which will commence tomorrow. The sacked officers were also accused of unlawfully inflicting various degrees of injuries on 4 other young men. The Rivers State Commissioner of Police says their dismissal is part of efforts to instill discipline in the police force. Let's take a look at some business news now. Here's Kayode Okikiolu.
Well, thank you, Jama, and you're welcome to Business News. Nigeria's capital market has lots of potentials for growth and development post-COVID-19 and beyond. Well, that's according to the Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Mr. Lamido Yuguda. The new head of the SEC, who made this known today in Abuja while resuming alongside 3 executive commissioners, explains that the Capital Market Master Plan, which was launched in 2014, has the objective of positioning the capital market for an accelerated development of the national economy. Mr. Yuguda assured that investor protection remains a major focus for the capital market regulator, while the new management will continue to work with other relevant stakeholders to promote and implement initiatives to improve the regulation and development of the market. And UK's four big accounting firms, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Deloitte, KPMG and EY, have been asked to separate consultancy service from their auditing operations. The move, which is one of the most sweeping changes to the sector globally, follows the collapse of several companies, including Thomas Cook, Wirecard and BHS. A statement from the industry's regulator, the Financial Reporting Council, says the major accounting firms must draw up plans to bring in a host of forced changes by the end of October and complete the shake-up by 2024. Meanwhile, the accounting firms said they were working with the FRC to develop ways for the separation, with a plan expected to be submitted by October the 23rd, 2024. And over to the NSE, where about 162 billion naira was knocked off from the total value of listed equities today as investors extend sell pressure into the start of a new week. Akaiti Afia has the details.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. It's a rough start to the week at the stock market as investors executed a mix of sell-offs and profit-taking on large-size equities in the wake of the recent adjustment to the Naira by the central bank. Now, the Apex Bank on Friday adjusted the bidding price for the US dollar to 380 Naira per unit at the secondary market intervention sales, in a move expected to harmonize foreign exchange rates in Africa's largest economy. The decision also followed the CPN's debit of a total of 118 billion Naira from banks in breach of the cash reserve ratio requirements, a development seen as the fourth of its kind so far this year, putting the total CRR debit at 2.2 trillion Naira. Well, these events put together dictated investors' decisions for the market today as traders reduce holdings in Nestle, BUA Cement, WAPCO, and Access Bank to commence the new trading week. This subsequently broadened the year-to-date losses of the market to 10.49%, despite a strong performance in market activity. Well, that's the Stock Market Report. I'm Akaite Afia.
Well, thank you, Akaite. Meanwhile, stock markets across the United States, Europe and Asia closed Monday's trading session much higher. Well, here are some of the closing figures. Well, thank you for watching Business News Tonight. I'm Kayode Okikiolu. The news at 10 continues with Ijeoma.
Thanks a lot, Kayode. Still ahead on the news at 10, China warns UK over interference in Hong Kong matters. Plus more stories from our London studio in Around the World in 5. Please stay with us. British Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab has rejected China's accusation that Britain had indulged in gross interference over Beijing's imposition of a new security legislation in Hong Kong. Earlier on Monday, China's ambassador to London told reporters that Britain was making unwarranted accusations about the new security legislation in Hong Kong, which he said could damage future Chinese investment. Here's Simon Pusey with the day's international stories in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. India has passed Russia as the country with the third highest number of coronavirus cases in the world after recording a record number of cases for one day. The Indian Health Ministry added 25,000 new cases in a single day, taking India's total to 697,000 reported cases of COVID-19. A strict lockdown in place since late March has gradually been lifted, despite the number of infections not showing any signs of slowing down. The Australian state of Victoria recorded its largest jump in cases at any point in the coronavirus crisis, with 127 new cases reported on Monday. To limit the spread of the cluster, the government decided for the closure of the border with neighbouring New South Wales, Australia's most populous state. Something similar has been done in Spain, where the region of Galicia has reimposed restrictions on about 70,000 people following a local COVID-19 outbreak. It's 24 hours after the region of Catalonia also introduced a local lockdown to curb the spread of the virus. A professor who criticised China's handling of the coronavirus crisis has been detained by authorities there. Xu Jiangrun, who has been under house arrest, was taken away from his Beijing home on Monday, but it's unclear why or what charges he faces. It comes as the new effects of a new security law have started to take hold in Hong Kong, where books written by pro-democracy activists are now unavailable in public libraries. Demonstrators have protested again, raising blank pieces of white paper to avoid slogans banned under the new law. At least 41 people have died in Japan due to heavy floods and 14 more people are missing. Japan's meteorological agency has issued a heavy rain emergency warning in 3 prefectures as torrential downpours continue to lash the southwest of the country. Weather officials are warning residents of landslides and river flooding as heavy rain is expected to continue in the next few days. Flood alert levels were raised in central and southern China as well, where a season of unusually high rainfall continues to lead to widespread flooding. The central Chinese city of Wuhan, the epicenter of the virus, raised its flood alert level. Torrential rain and thunderstorms battered swathes of the country, including the Yangtze River on which it sits. The Russian Ministry of Emergencies has announced it is tackling wildfires sparked by a heat wave in remote areas of Russia's Siberia and Far East regions. According to the ministry, there are currently dozens of wildfires raging in the regions, some of which are in remote areas that are difficult to reach. Siberia is experiencing a severe heat wave, with a remote town in northeastern Siberia recently registering a recorded high temperature of 38 degrees Celsius. Malawi's new president, Lazarus Chakwera, has called off independence celebrations and massively reduced the size of his formal inauguration. Both events were due to be marked by a huge celebration in Lilongwe's football stadium. The president had announced the stadium's capacity would be halved to 20,000 to limit the spread of coronavirus. Now, though, the stadium festivities have been cancelled altogether, with the inauguration being moved to a military barracks to be witnessed by only 100 especially invited guests. One of the world's most famous and prolific screen composers, the Italian Ennio Morricone, has died aged 91. Mr. Morricone, who won 2 Oscars and dozens of other awards, including Golden Globes, Grammys and BAFTAs, broke his femur some days ago and died during the night in a clinic in Rome. His last Oscar was in 2016 for Best Original Score for Quentin Tarantino's The Hateful Eight. Israel has launched a new spy satellite as it said it would provide high-quality surveillance for its military intelligence. Israel has been building up its surveillance capabilities to monitor enemies such as Iran, whose nuclear program it sees as a major threat. The satellite is called OFEC 16 and will send the first images in about a week's time. A plane suspected of carrying drugs has been reportedly set alight in Mexico after allegedly being intercepted by soldiers on a highway. Members of the army doing a flyover at the site reportedly spotted the plane before deploying units. According to media reports, those aboard set fire to the plane to escape. Authorities have yet to officially report on the contents of the plane or whether any arrests were made. And finally, a new phone application aims to help in tackling the latest desert locust infestation in Kenya. Called eLocusts, the app was financed by the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization to help authorities control movements and development of the locust swarms. The hope is to better understand how the swarms move and to introduce control measures before they become airborne. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Nigeria Professional Football League side Rangers International have confirmed they will present the insurance benefit of late striker Ifeanyi George worth 20 million naira to his family on July the 21st in Enugu. George died in a fatal auto crash on March the 22nd along the Asaba-Benin Expressway after the league management company announced the stoppage of the top flight owing to the COVID-19 pandemic. A new report published by the French Football Federation has revealed that the 2019 FIFA Women's World Cup contributed over $320 million to the country's economy. Published 1 year since the USA defeated the Netherlands to win a historic 4th title, the report highlighted the positive socio-economic legacy of the tournament, which attracted 1.2 million spectators and a global TV audience over 1 billion fans. In England, manager Jose Mourinho has earned his 200th Premier League victory as Tottenham Hotspur edged past Everton by 1-0. The tough contest was settled by Michael Keane's own goal after the ball deflected in off the Everton defender from Giovanni Lo Celso's strike. And that's a wrap in sports news. I'm Ayotunde Balogun.
Thanks, Ayotunde. And the main news again. The Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 today said passengers without face masks will not be allowed on domestic flights. The PTF also believes that Nigeria will probably reach its peak in September. And also today, the people of Baramatu Kingdom in Warri, southwest local government area of Delta State, threatened to shut down oil and gas installations in their domain if their demands over alleged marginalization, amongst other things, are not met in a few days. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for staying with us. I'm Ijoma Onyato. You stay safe out there, and good night.